Are the players ready to go out the gate? T-Rex, are you ready? Jump up and down if you're ready. Yep. Say something. And they're off here on a gray morning again. What's new? 62 degrees. What's new? Pretty much the same as the ocean temperature. 8:45 on September 26th. We're on the waning side of the harvest moon, and 3 hours until low tide. When you're between moons, you get the low tide at midday and midnight. So it's good beach weather. It's always good beach weather. Who cares what color the sky is? I call this battleship gray. We have a very gray sky. The birds are all migrating and moving, and that really turns Steve on. And the weather is finally moving a little bit. We've been talking about a block in the atmosphere for so long. Putting Steve on there. And this is the first day since last Wednesday, 8 days, that the boats are not pointed toward the east. The boats are pointed towards the south. That means the air is coming from the south. Very light air right now, at least down here on the ground. Little waves. And we still, though, have high pressure over eastern Canada. It's the last day that we'll have any impact from this high that's been pretty much impacting us all month long. It's now about a 1028 high over Newfoundland. And it's been responsible for so much weather, from the record cold early in the month to the record warm in northern New England about 6 days ago, and then kind of metamorphized into a new cool backdoor front last Friday, which helped fuel the record rains on Cape Cod last weekend. Well, this is the last day with that high, and I think fittingly, it is shedding a tropical cyclone. Last night, the National Hurricane Center decided to name what we had been calling waves on a warm front. 2 days ago, it had 40, 50 mile an hour winds. Last night, it had 30 mile an hour winds, but it became Tropical Storm Isaac way out there to the east of Cape Cod. And so it's the 9th named storm of the season, and it looks like we may have Joyce joining the party with the 10th named storm of the season. More on that in the hurricane department in a few minutes. What about the ocean? Well, the waves, the buoys are still reporting seas of 6 feet. 7 feet at 11 seconds. That's a lot of water. It's still a little too heavy for me to get out there, and apparently everyone else too. I went to the Cinnamon Rainbows cam there in Hampton Beach. Nobody out in the water. Big waves, kind of white. You don't really want to paddle out into white water. The wind onshore from the southeast now at about 5 to 10 miles an hour. And also at warm winds at Narragansett Town Beach in Rhode Island. Looks like one person there attempting to go out there in the lower left, school bus going by. So many people have to go to school and work and things like that, and not surf. I think tomorrow probably our best bet for a clean leftover swell, and the wind will come in from the west tomorrow for the first time in who knows how long. Things are changing. Let's start with New England. I'm going to change I had the red numbers on for wind gusts. I changed back to blue numbers, which are dew point readings. So the air light from the east-southeast, and it's a dew point near 60 now. It looks like Provincetown, temperature and dew point both 61. So it's a good amount of humidity, and there is a bit of a connection to the southeastern United States with a big upper-level trough coming into the east coast. But we're really watching what's happening in southeastern Canada for our immediate weather. The radar shows, you can't quite see it, but there's a center of a low-pressure system north of Montreal, and a pretty good slug of rain coming out of New York and crossing Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. And it was moving toward the north yesterday, moving toward the east this morning. It's going to start moving toward the south this afternoon. And there have been flash flood warnings and some severe weather on the southern end of this rain, including this morning. And yesterday there were a couple of tornadoes reported there. And parts of Virginia, the mid-Atlantic states. So there's a lot of action there, but we're going to kind of cut off that severe weather threat because the air is going to be coming more from southeastern Canada. And if we play it out, first let's look at the satellite imagery. You can see the thicker cloud over parts of Vermont, and oh yeah, the rainfall over the last 2 days. First time we've had puddles in northern New England since about August 31st, September 1st. That was the last significant front to cross New England. We've had a couple of backdoor fronts and all that rain on Cape Cod. The front was stalled to our south. So there is a front easing its way south today, and it's going to be a strengthening upper level low pressure system that wrings out the moisture for us here. So now if we go to the HRRR and the hour by hour precipitation, there it is pressing off to the east, and then it looks like almost a line of showers and thunderstorms, maybe with some gusty winds and some small hail, could be developing in southern Vermont, southern New Hampshire tonight, and pushing off the south coast tomorrow morning. And then we almost see the northern rain band from Hurricane Helene almost there in the southwest tomorrow afternoon. And then by Saturday, the rain should have shut off. So between now and then, how much rain are we talking about? You know, I should always say the caveat. Bruce was mentioning really 5 inches of rain in southwestern Connecticut, because that's what the HRRR had yesterday. And today, in that same location, it has less than a ½ inch of rain. So when I show these quantitative precipitation forecasts and these timing of these fronts on the high resolution guidance, you can move those rain bands 50 or 100 miles, and it makes a huge difference. We cannot get the forecast accurate in less than 50 miles. So that rain band now that was in southern Connecticut is now just from Long Island to Cape Cod, while there's a general swath of 1 to 2 inches in northern New England, then kind of some gaps, another stripe there that goes from Long Island. Now, if we put the cursor over the water just to the east of Block Island, it shows more than 3 inches. So when you see these numbers, 3 to 5 inches, that means somebody could get 3 to 5 inches. And it usually works out that somebody gets it, but hardly ever where you think exactly where it's going to happen. If you put your cursor right over your town, it probably means within 50 or 100 miles, and that certainly is what happened last weekend when we had that bouncing red ball with the rainfall over eastern Massachusetts. It did end up being 11 inches of rain, so you could have taken the over last week. Taking a breath, watching a bird land, a gull. The egrets have gone south, the osprey have gone south, so now we're left with the gulls and other birds that migrate south through New England. And I'm on the anniversary of 1 year ago confirming an American bald eagle flying right over my flag. Obviously I need a new flag. This one's kind of tattered. It is time, but I got this from the Virginia Flag Company, and it lasted a lot longer than most of the other flags, and made in America. All right, what do you want to talk about next? The Hurricane Center issuing advisories now on that new tropical storm Isaac, which was actually part of our old rainstorm. The middle of the Atlantic Ocean is forecast to become a hurricane out there going towards Europe. What's new? These storms going toward Europe have been battering Europe. And then there's another one there off of Africa, and it's supposed to become Tropical Storm Joyce before we know it. That'll be the 10th named storm. Look at that in a different satellite perspective. Look at Joyce, potential Joyce, just surrounded by Saharan dust. But we talked about all year long how it's supposed to be a very serious hurricane season, and we do have a very serious hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico now. I want to show you the satellite imagery from Zoom Earth, and there are twin cyclones now. Yesterday I called it Jack. Well, when I was born, the president's name John, they called him Jack, so pardon me. That's now Tropical Storm John, south of where it went in a couple days ago, and is expected to become a hurricane again and go back into Acapulco. Wow, getting hit by the same storm twice. That happened here in southern New England. With one of those storms went through westerly Rhode Island twice. That was, what, 3 years ago? But all eyes, seriously, though, are on Helene. I got a legitimate question from Steve Turnblom, Shrewsbury. He says, Tim, now, if this deepens 24 millibars in 24 hours, is that called bombogenesis? And that's what this storm is doing, deepening 24 millibars from the upper 970s to the lower 950s in 24 hours. But no, that's mostly used in the cold core storms up here in the northeast and northern latitudes. In the hurricane department, we call it rapid intensification. So that's what's happening with Helene this morning, rapid intensification. And I think I'm going to jump right ahead to the... No, I'm not. I'm going to come back, reel it in a little bit, and show the Boston forecast on the weather.us Euro meteogram. And there's rain coming in today. The Euro is the most aggressive with rain, and it says Boston may pick up more than an inch of rain tonight, and this afternoon, tonight, and be gone tomorrow. With the sun coming back tomorrow, 75 degrees, light wind from the west. Let's go surfing. Beach weather tomorrow. And then there's going to be additional cooler air coming in with sort of dry pushes of air from Canada, preventing Helene's moisture from coming in here on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And then the forecast for the remnant of Helene has changed again back to more how it was 2 days ago. Yesterday I wasn't paying that close attention, and Helene had snuck off to the south of New England on Monday, and I didn't even really notice it. So if you watch my graphics very carefully, you'll see that I corrected from saying over Virginia to from over Arkansas to over Virginia on Monday. But now let's go to the Euro and try and track Helene and the weather that's coming at New England over the next 10 days. Let's start it at 8 o'clock tonight. So there's the static image of 8 o'clock tonight with a squall line in southern New England. 10-11 low just to the west of Maine. That's a cool push of air from Canada that's going to prevent Helene coming our way. Helene is now 952 millibars. That's even deeper than yesterday, coming into the Big Bend of Florida. That's 28.1 on your barometer at home, inches. And that's an extraordinary storm that the National Hurricane Center is calling unsurvivable. Before we put this in motion, the storm chasers down there are all lined up, and these are professional chasers. They've been doing it a lot of times. Josh Morgan, he measured the height of the balcony he intends to ride this out on above the water there in the Florida Panhandle just south of Tallahassee, and he's getting a lot of pushback, like you're crazy, you're putting yourself in great risk, and he's going to be there. So we'll be watching Josh Morgan on X. And what's it called? Okalakanoni Bay. I can't pronounce the name of most of these bays. T-Rex, you got something to say? Can we just go to the forecast? All right, here, let's put it in motion now, starting tonight at 8 o'clock. And that front pushes south of New England, and the rain bands are settling just to our south tomorrow. The northern rain bands coming up the east coast, as there is a front stalled all up and down the east coast, which should stay south of us. And then the remnant of Helene, which could bring hurricane force winds all the way up to the mountains at the southern end of the Appalachian mountain trail, will fade into Kentucky and Tennessee as we see another front coming out of the Midwest. Boy, the evolution of this front coming out of the Midwest has changed so many times. It looked like it was cold enough for snow at one point, and now it looks like it's just going to be a weakening front with low pressure, but it is a front, and there's going to be upper level winds that try and pull the remnant of Helene in our direction. So stop it here now Tuesday night, or this is Wednesday at 2 a.m. There's a front with a low north of us, a front coming in from the west, and the upper flow is going to try and pick up Helene and some leftover moisture and bring a rain and wind band into southern New England on Tuesday night, early Wednesday. So this is a wild card we've been watching. I talk about how I watch the forecasts, the weather change and the forecasts change, and if I try to add a how and why and when to every time it changes, these things would be, instead of 10 minutes long, they'd be 20 or 30. I'm talking just the weather part. So I'm just going to kind of call the play-by-play, and this does look reasonable, that we may get clipped by the remnant of Helene going off to our south and trying to re-strengthen a little bit and then going out to sea. And then the forecast after that for the end of next week has changed completely from how it was 2 or 3 days ago. And I'd say the reason for that is these storms coming out of the Pacific Ocean are powerful storms that do not get as high resolution on the initialization. So when they enter North America, they kind of get sprayed around. And what looked like a cold and snowy pattern for the Northwest and into the Great Lakes next week now looks like, no, that all stays up in Canada. And not only is there no snow around late next week where it had it a couple days ago over Lake Superior, now it looks like if we go to day 10, you have the 570 and 576 thickness coming into the Great Lakes. So instead of snow, that's close to record warm. So you add them up and divide by 2. It looks very active. And if we go south into the Gulf of Mexico like we did yesterday, there is no tropical cyclone in the Gulf of Mexico. There's just a huge, expansive high-pressure system there, 10, 20-something just east of New England, which will initially bring us some cool weather. But the backside now looks like it could bring record warm a few days before Columbus Day. Wow. So we're monitoring the changes, calling the play-by-play. It's the real world of weather. Kind of a sad day in Dennis, Massachusetts, or a sad week. The flags at half-mast at the Dennis Fire Department there. Thank you, Kevin, for this image. In respect and memory for Paul Prue. Paul Prue, longtime Dennis citizen, just had his 89th birthday on July 1st, and he passed away on Monday, the 23rd. Paul Prue, such a generous man, a good friend of Out the Door Weather and More. Barbara and Paul pulled into the driveway one day, and Paul handed me out the window a folder of Bob Copeland's weather calendar from 1981. I happen to have 82 handy in my own pile, and the history of the Atlantic hurricanes, and this almanac that Mish Michaels and Harvey Leonard put together. And Paul gave me some of his cherished memories, and he leaves a lot of people grateful for having known Paul, and a little hole in our hearts for now, but knowing that he lived such a rich life and contributed so much to our town in Dennis. Thank you, Paul, for being a viewer, and condolences to the rest of the family. We all grew up together, and so my and more is going to be me trying to find the words late yesterday on summarizing the weather and my respect for Paul. And out of respect for Paul too, how about a time lapse overlooking Fallon's Pond? The last time I ever saw Paul, he was right in that driveway at the bottom of this image. All right, this one's for you, Paul. Talk to you tomorrow.
11:30.
Didn't I say we might see the sun? We might see the sun. I kind of like this though. Got a workboat with a big winch on it, and a skiff winched onto the back.
Yeah. That is a heck of a tower you got there. Going tuna fishing? Is that your whale boat? You gonna chase?
Put a harpoon in and then chase it? Sure.
Four p.m. Planes are still landing
Toward the east. Day 7 with a wind in off the ocean. Thought maybe we'd see some sunshine today. Just did not work out.
Saw blue sky on the horizon, but the clouds thick off the ocean. The clouds thick from the front,
From the west.
There's the west. Wind from the west is best, and that's coming in for our Friday, which is now tomorrow, because this is the and more. Looking over towards Quincy on this very gray Wednesday. A lot of times your gray Wednesday, because the weather changes every few days, usually means a brighter weekend, and I think that is the case this time, as the harbor master heads toward the Twin River and the Four River Bridge, towards Burt's and the Braintree Yacht Club and Metropolitan. Boats will be coming out of the water before we know it. But there's going to be a little nice weather left, especially toward the weekend. All right, shorter video today for a change, but the time lapse from Dennis. Maybe the sun came out in Dennis. And saying a prayer for Paul Prue, great Dennis citizen, someone respected and a great admirer of weather. Gifted me a Bob Copeland weather calendar. Watched our videos every day. Rest in peace, Paul.